The term OZOAVIOKI is an acronym which stands for Union of Societies for Assistance to Defense and Aid.
Sorry we're so far away, fellas.
Founded in 1927, it had absolutely nothing.
Okay, you cocksucking motherfucking piece of shit. God damn it, I gave you a chance. You just will not fuck off. God damn. God damn.
The plan was initiated in April 1946 when the Soviet Minister of Aeronautical Industry, Mikhail Khrushchev, issued an order for the relocation of the German aeronautical industry. This was followed by a May 1946 resolution decreed by the Ministry of Internal Affairs, or MBD, which ordered the transfer of 2,000 German specialists by the end of the year. And not just specialists of any kind, the Soviet zone of occupation included facilities which were replete with scientists and technicians involved in aviation and rocket engineering projects. Initially, the Soviets founded institutions such as the Nordhausen Institute or the Berlin Institute to resume work initiated by the Reich's best and brightest. For example, the Nordhausen was put under the direction of Helmut Bosch, a former collaborator of Werner von Braun on the V2 program. The agreement signed amongst the Allies at Potsdam prohibited the development of weapons on German soil, and so Moscow planned the relocation of these programs elsewhere. Following the MVD's resolution in 1946, the Soviet forces started to gather hundreds of experts in atomic research, electronics, navigation equipment,
Elsa underwear.
On October the 22nd, 1946,
there are some tawdry YouTube videos about Elsa.
Under the leadership
And
of Ivan Serov,
the fun one, the redhead, you know,
transporting the necessary equipment to the USSR.
the actual hero of the film. God damn, you never had a relationship with a redhead. Try to make that
They were offered a regular contract and paid salaries which were higher.
So these old men are sitting on a park bench, like they do every afternoon, feeding the pigeons, shit like that. And one old man says to the other old man, he's like, "You ever slept with a blonde?" He's like, "Many times, many times." A little while later, he says, "You ever slept with a brunette?" He goes, "Many times, many times." A little while later, he goes, "You ever slept with a redhead?" The other old man says, "Not a wink." I'm serious. Give it a shot. They're feisty, but just man up.
As you might imagine, only a fraction of the German scientific contingent refused to cooperate with Moscow, and those that refused were interned in back. The OZOAVIOKI scientists gradually allowed to return to Germany after 1950, with the vast majority leaving. But in the end, at the start of this video, we asked the question,
to a heart that's
especially given that the ideology behind it
don't want no other rubber. Baby, it's been that boop-a-doop.
Both societies needed to move on quickly to both build their economies and to face the political challenges posed by the Cold War. And so everyone was incentivized to do so, and so did. And on top of this, the extreme atrocities committed by the Nazis during the war helped convince those who had bought into what the Nazis were selling that maybe they should rethink their decision-making paradigms.
You loser. These no. I was robbed.
Wiping the slate clean in such a perversive regime was a logistically daunting task, to accomplish at a certain point. The Nazi Party was finished. The Soviets were the new threat.
Rascally Wackoon, right on.
To facilitate this, Nazis and many prominent individuals in Japan would better serve those roles in their positions that they were experts in, rather than sitting in prison or executed. And for more on the Japanese side of this, do see our documentary Swept Under the Rug, the truth about the Japanese Holocaust.
Hey, look, there's that thing that says Patreons, and he has your names on his video. Doesn't that totally make it worth paying money? So that's so shallow and vacuous. It's such a tiny snippet of potential fame to get all wound up about. Oh, get off me, dick. Dick, 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 dick. That was unbelievable. I don't. I don't know, but let's see what this is about.
May 1945. Hollywood director George Stevens and a few of his cameras.
Thank you for dropping on my jump.
Of the Nazis. Adolf Hitler is dead, and the Wehrmacht has finally been defeated. A bit of tomfoolery, perhaps to blot out memories of the horrors of Dachau.
Stevens is in no hurry to return to Hollywood. He is determined to document the end of the Nazi regime as accurately as possible. Consequently, he and his team have also come to Berchtesgaden. Stevens has been given permission to film on the Obersalzberg, Hitler's private refuge high above the town. The Berghof is a ruin, a symbol of the demise of a murderous ideology.
From the Obersalzberg, Stevens travelled to nearby Austria, first to Salzburg, and then on to Innsbruck.
Oh shit! It looks like you got that turret. I mean, looks like my machine gun killed the dude's mech because he was standing in front of my turrets.
Also drove to the Brenner Pass on the border with Italy and South Tyrol.
Here's someone's jump pack heavy machine gun right here.
The Wehrmacht had laid down its arms in Italy and South Tyrol, but not in Austria.
It was the other one, not mine.
And the Reich government in Flensburg in northern Germany was still refusing to capitulate to the
Please activate the former, even though it's trans.
On behalf of Admiral Dönitz, Colonel General Alfred Jodl had flown to Reims in France to sign the declaration of the unconditional surrender of Nazi Germany. Kurt B. Lawton, Eisenhower's man
Yeah,
who
that.
fought journalism in World War II, documented this major event in world history with his amateur camera.
Transformer.
Still in
Oh my
hopes of
G's.
securing a separate arms
Oh my
list
G's, lol.
with the Western Allies. Negotiations in the Allied headquarters were deadlocked for hours. Headed by General Eisenhower, the Allied delegation resolutely demanded the unconditional surrender of the German armed forces on all fronts. Jodl hesitated because this was a step
Yodi.
he had
Yodel?
no authority
Oh,
to
yodel.
take. The British and Americans
Yodel, late,
responded by
eat,
threatening to start bombing
The
German
ant
cities again.
storm.
To avoid an
The ant word is cool. Yolandi is a
liaison
boo.
officer had been invited to attend the ceremony.
She's a tawdry little
It was
muppet.
only
Yes,
after
yes.
midnight that the German delegation received a telegram from Dönitz saying that Jodl was allowed to sign.
At 2:39 a.m. on May the 7th, 1945, U.S. General Walter Bedell Smith, Soviet General Ivan Suslaparov, and, as a witness, French Major General François Sevet all signed the capitulation document. Then it was Alfred Jodl's turn to add his signature. Then, the Commander-in-Chief of the Allied Expeditionary Force, Dwight D.
Buddy Bunker,
announced that
Q3,
as of 23:01
Quebec 3. Let's
hours, Central European time, on May the 8th, 1945, the war
open the door. Then you can play.
We, the undersigned, acting
Thank
by
you.
authority of the German High Command, hereby surrender unconditionally to the Supreme Commander, Allied Expeditionary Force, and simultaneously to the Soviet High Command, all forces
Super
in
credits.
land, at sea, and in the air, who are at this date under German control.
When Joseph Stalin heard of the capitulation in France, he was beside himself with rage and demanded that the ceremony be repeated in his own sphere of influence. But the news from France had already been made public. As a result, most German soldiers surrendered voluntarily, if possible to the Americans. On May the 7th, a cameraman with Special Film Project 186...
If possible to the Americans. I wonder what that means.
Southeast Germany.
Because that means something. There's a reason behind that. It's the Germans instead of the Americans, instead of the Soviets.
Author Erich Kästner wrote in his diary,
Flensburg radio station has announced that Europe's government into force tomorrow.
Cool it down.
But the radio station in Bohemia has caught the report of fabrication
Back what you
conducted by
said.
the enemy. In Berlin, the Russians claim to have found the corpses of Goebbels, his wife, and their children. Now the radio stations have ceased broadcasting. It is quiet here. The only sound is that of cockchafers, those little armored insects flying headfirst into the illuminated window.
Call and resupply on the console. Okay, it was a little bit short. When you're that river down there, you can, for example, I can jump from here down into that river without taking any damage if I jump to the deep part. But where the little white lines go across the river, that's where you can walk without drowning. My kid told me that one. It's good to know.
Old borders, which the Munich Agreement of 1938 had shifted in favor of the Sudeten German minority.
Restored the borders. You know, this is a neat show.
Over the past 2 weeks, U.S. General George S. Patton had advanced 30 to 40 kilometers a day, an almost incredible rate of progress. In early May 1945, his troops had crossed the border into Bohemia. On May the 6th, American units liberated the city of Pilsen. The next day, the GI's arrival turned into a rousing victory parade. Thousands of Pilsen citizens welcomed the Americans with boundless joy.
What'd you do?
That was wrong.
It was the first time cameramen with Special Film Project 186 had been able to film scenes of jubilation.
The tower wasn't lighting up for me to turn it, so I jumped over to the thing. And it turns out it's already done. I guess it was already lined up, but there was a bunch of shit there.
Yeah.
There were a bunch of gnomes all over the place, so they murdered me.
Allied destroyer joining squadron, deploying Helldiver to combat zone.
Danger.
Fucking gnomes.
Danger.
Damn, there's shit all over the damn place here.
Yeah, it's got nuts. It went crazy all of a sudden.
Allied destroyer has left
Gone
the
were
squadron.
people's fears that their
Man, there's a lot of people going in and out of this game.
Yet, that nearly happened, because in Pilsen and the surrounding area, the Germans still had around 15,000 troops who were determined.
People are going in and out of this game like it's Patty the Daytime Hooker.
However, the two U.S. divisions which liberated Pilsen outnumbered the Germans. So the German commander, General von Majewski, decided to surrender. At 2:15 on the afternoon of May the 6th, 1945, he signed the capitulation document and ordered his troops to cease all hostilities. Then, in front of his staff and his wife, Majewski committed suicide.
Request confirmed. Shuttle
Wait, what?
inbound.
1945,
Allied
he
destroyer
signed the
Who complimented sewer slide?
ordered his troops
Contemplated
to cease
sewer
all
slide?
hostilities. Then, in front of his staff and his wife, Majewski committed suicide.
Sewer slide. Yeah, that's what cancel culture's got us doing right now. Sewer slide, my butt. Balzac, the composer,
7 months.
looking Foozer.
The
Like sick.
occupying Germans left Pilsen forever.
Yeah,
6
boy.
years of brutal suppression had left their mark. In
What's
March
going on over there?
1939, Hitler's Wehrmacht had broken the Munich Agreement and marched into Czechoslovakia.
Firing gas strike.
As part of
Taste
the
my saucy goodness.
Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, for years the people of Pilsen too were at the mercy of German despotism and terror.
I wonder if I could make a grenade toss into that fucking hole.
Were deported to concentration camps.
No.
Requesting fortification.
How about now? Oh, I think it worked. Yeah, boy.
Right up until Germany's capitulation, Field Marshal Ferdinand Schorner and his troops were entrenched.
Still
Schorner
ETA T-minus
was a
30
fanatical
seconds.
Nazi whom Hitler, in his last will and testament, had appointed commander-in-chief of the
I got all
army.
this shit.
ETA T-minus 20 seconds.
In line with the maxim, strength through fear, Schorner used brutal methods to put his troops under pressure.
ETA
Deserters
T-minus
were
10
hanged from
seconds.
the nearest tree with a sign round their necks saying, "I refuse to protect German women and children."
Oh, ho, 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 ho.
Pelican 1 approaching pickup.
Even though they were the instigators. Hot damn it.
Commented on this attitude as late as March
This is Pelican 1
1945.
preparing for touchdown.
Such methods have an impact, of course. At any rate, every soldier in Schorner's combat area knows that he can die at the front and will
Pelican
die
1
at the
preparing
rear.
to depart. Shuttle launch in 20 seconds.
Reinforcement budget depleted.
The
That
German
was fun
prisoners
rated.
of war were escorted out
Extraction
of
complete.
town by
Pelican
Czech
1 beginning ascent.
resistance fighters.
Ambient is in 0. What the fuck?
These pictures taken by a US Air
Shit.
Force camera.
Today you've carved another foot in a long climb to liberty.
Allied destroyer has left squadron.
Always good to have another hero.
You ever use a purifier?
Yes, I have.
And?
I think it's S tier, but it has a higher learning curve than most weapons. It's pretty badass if you know how to use it, but it's hard to learn how to use it well without killing yourself and stuff. Why are you like that, Derpy Dog? Derpy Doge. Derpy, 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 derpy.
Priority alert. The Termidon system.
You're here. The galaxy awaits your salvation. The bugs swarm across this planet. Choose where to make use. This operation is complete. You have served democracy well.
Mission coordinates locked. Thrusters. Coordinates synchronized. Allied destroyer has joined squadron.
Annoying.
Engaging orbital thrusters.
Like, fuck.
In places where prior to the arrival of the Allies, a vacuum had formed, excessive violence was common. The aggressive mood was fueled by the Czech president in exile, Edvard Beneš, who, even before the war was over, had said,
The Germans will be paid back many times over, and without mercy, for all the crimes they have committed in our land since 1938.
the Americans came across the victims of acts of vengeance time and again. It is May the 8th, 1945, the last day of the Second World War in Europe. The Czechs celebrated their American liberators, but they had nothing but contempt for their former tormentors.
Canomes. Canomes.
The bodies were carted away and buried somewhere. No one in
Carted away and buried
Berlin
somewhere.
shed a single tear for a dead German.
Jesus fucking Christ.
The cameraman with Special Film Project 186
Don't
took
you know?
these pictures.
Reddit.
And without mercy, for all the crimes they have committed in our land since 1938.
The Americans came across the victims of acts of vengeance time and again.
Hot. Diggity snows. Rancho Beans, Parmigiano Reggiano, and some of this
1945, the last day of the Second World War in Europe.
this Cabot cheddar.
The Czechs celebrated their American liberators, but they had nothing but contempt for their former tormentors.
Yeah, imagine. Fucking Germans, fucking Nazis. I mean, I lived in Germany for a year. I'm totally cool with Germans. I love Germans.
Go at him.
Man, not a fan of the Nazis.
You gonna ready up there, sir?
The bodies were carted away and buried somewhere. No one in Bohemia shed a single tear for a dead German.
The cameraman with Special Film Project 186 took these pictures right on the Soviet-American demarcation. Before this Wehrmacht officer is allowed to pass the checkpoint, he has to hand over his pistol.
Wow.
A German general surrenders in comfort in a convertible.
Yep.
A U.S. military policeman then drives him to a special prisoner of war camp for high-ranking officers.
You know, I really should have had a plate. Oh, and the bowl. Let's go see it. The bowl.
Anyone who was fortunate enough grabbed a ride on a Wehrmacht truck heading for the safety of the West.
Safety for what?
Among the endless convoy of German soldiers, there were also some trucks carrying jubilant Czechs.
Jubilant Czechs. Best kind of Czechs. Yeah.
At 12:30 on May the 8th, 1945, Reich President Karl Dönitz spoke to the nation on the radio.
Men and women of Germany, in my address on May the 1st, in which I informed you of the death of the Führer, my appointment as his successor, I stated that my first task was to save German lives. In order to attain this goal, in the night of the 6th to the 7th of May, I ordered the Armed Forces High Command to declare the unconditional surrender of all fighting troops in all theaters of war. At 2300 hours on May the 8th, the guns will fall silent.
Midnight in certain time zones.
Most of the defeated German soldiers had to make their way into captivity on foot. This is how one soldier remembered May the 8th, 1945.
We were really frightened. All we could think about was what awaited us over the next few days. What would happen to us in Czechoslovakia, surrounded as we were with no way out? Then suddenly the war was over. The new Führer of what was left of the Reich, Grand Admiral Karl Dönitz, announced the unconditional surrender of the Reich and the Wehrmacht. At long last the war was over. Years of destroying human lives and property were over. But what would become of us Germans? My life had been preserved, but how would I be able to shape them? Would there be any real possibilities open to me?
No, you stay out of that. It's not supposed to. You know what? You can have this.
On May the 8th,
It's a big
US
ham,
President
the ass of a
Harry S.
ham
Truman
loaf.
addressed
I
his
usually get
nation on
hams,
the
not
radio.
ham loaf.
This is a solemn but a glorious hour. Our
Like that,
rejoicing
baby.
is sober and subdued by a supreme
Baby dog,
consciousness of the
baby
terrible
dog,
price we have paid to rid
baby,
the
baby,
world of
Bobby
Hitler
dog.
and his evil band.
Billy baby dog. Love it. Yeah, I'm saying some silly shit from that show with
Rats
the
were leaving the sinking
righteous
ship.
gemstones. That's what I'm doing. Yo.
Kitzingen near Würzburg. A German warlord allowed himself to be filmed by a cameraman with Special Film Project 186 together with his squadron, fighter and bomber pilot Hans Ulrich Rudel had flown out of Bohemia to surrender to the Americans. Rudel was the only member of the German armed forces to be awarded the Knight's Cross with golden oak leaves, swords, and diamonds. He was also a fanatical Nazi. In March 1945, while still in a military hospital after being seriously wounded by Soviet anti-aircraft fire, Rudel appeared on Joseph Goebbels' weekly propaganda newsreel, exhorting the Germans to stand firm.
This time it is not about personal sacrifices. We all need to grit our teeth and willingly accept these sacrifices. And in the end, this nation of ours, which up to now has fought so courageously and has indeed gritted its teeth, will achieve final victory.
Rudel presented himself to his American hosts as a cultivated individual who, as a soldier, had merely been doing his duty. Rudel spent nearly a year in American captivity. After he was released, he first set up a haulage company. But in 1948, he fled via the Iraq to South America. In Argentina, Rudel set up a relief organization for Nazi war criminals and maintained close contact with fascists from Italy and Croatia who were being searched for worldwide. Rudel ended the war as an amputee, but still firmly convinced that National Socialism had been a good idea.
Sending down sentry.
In this respect, he was totally in agreement with Lieutenant General Adolf Galland, who, like Rudel, was a highly decorated fighter pilot. After his release from American captivity, Galland also went to Argentina, where he acted as advisor to President Juan Perón's Air Force.
Bug outpost destroyed.
When Perón was ousted from power, Adolf Galland returned to Germany, while Hans Ulrich Rudel served the dictators of Paraguay and Chile. In Chile, he occasionally resided in the notorious Colonia Dignidad torture commune. For the rest of his life, Rudel maintained close contact with the neo-Nazi scene in Germany. The funeral of the Nazi war hero in 1982 turned into a macabre showpiece. Old comrades bade farewell with the Hitler salute. German Air Force jets made a low-level pass over the cemetery, and the mourners sang all three verses of the German national anthem.
In London on May the 8th, people gathered in the streets to celebrate the end of the Second World War in Europe. In his memoirs, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill
Bug
wrote,
outpost destroyed.
The unconditional surrender of our enemies was the signal for the greatest outburst of joy in the history of mankind. The Second World War had indeed been fought to the bitter end in Europe. The vanquished as well as the victors felt inexpressible relief. Weary and poor, impoverished, but undaunted, and now triumphant, we had a moment that was sublime. We thanked God for the greatest of his blessings, the feeling that we had done our duty.
I don't care what you say. Bradley was so much fun to listen to.
On May the 8th, Churchill insisted on giving the Victory in Europe broadcast himself. It was almost 5 years to the day, on May the 10th, 1940, he had assumed leadership of a national coalition government in Britain's darkest hour. Following defeat in France and the retreat from Dunkirk, Churchill predicted that the war against Nazi Germany would cost his people blood, sweat, and tears. His contempt for Hitler knew no bounds. Consequently, the E-Day was the biggest triumph of his life.
Hey, I'm at a buddy bunker. Anyone want to get in on this? That's
Outpost clear.
Papa 1 at a buddy bunker.
Deploying
As
sentry.
Churchill drove through London, the crowds cheered him. But barely 2 months later, he suffered a bitter defeat at the hands of the British electorate. It cost Churchill the office of Prime Minister. Walking behind the Sergeant-at-Arms, who is
Hotel
bearing
2, are you coming to the bunker?
mace of the House of Commons, Speaker Douglas Clifton heads for Westminster Abbey,
Yeah, I'm on my way.
followed by the Prime Minister
Roger
of
that.
His Majesty's government.
It looked like you were heading this way.
I did.
In the Abbey,
You didn't see me running in circles?
sang the hymn of thanksgiving written by Isaac Watts in 1708.
O God, our help in ages past, our
Uh.
hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast,
GG.
and our eternal home.
The first to leave the Abbey after the service was the royal family. King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, and their daughters, Princesses Elizabeth and Margaret.
You just get all the loot. I'll kill everything out here for you.
For the royal family
Got it.
to be evacuated to
Mission at
Canada.
30 minutes remaining.
But first and foremost, it was the Queen who totally
Alright, let's
rejected
beat
the
feet.
idea.
The children won't go.
Could do that too.
I won't leave the king, and the king will never leave.
The King and Queen remained in London throughout the war, actively giving comfort and encouragement to people, especially during the Blitz.
God damn, it's a good sandwich.
May the 9th, 1945. At a barracks in Wiesbaden, liberated Soviet slave workers celebrate victory over Germany. Most of them had been deported to the Third Reich after the Nazis occupied the Ukraine and Belarus. The women were put to work mainly in armaments factories. For all Soviet citizens, the 9th of May was the day of liberation from Nazi fascism. That is because the Declaration of Surrender was signed after midnight, Moscow time. Joseph Stalin had demanded that the
Keep going, Joseph.
ceremony be repeated in Berlin Karlshorst. In his view, the pictures from Reims,
I'll tell you when to stop.
Soviet general seemed like a
Stop.
neutral observer, could not symbolize the end of a war that had cost the lives of 27 million of his subjects. On May the 9th, a camera team with Special Film Projects 186 took this footage of the victory celebrations in Wiesbaden, at which a statement by the Soviet dictator was read out.
3 years ago, Hitler declared for all to hear that his aims included the dismemberment of the Soviet Union and the wresting from it of the Caucasus, the Ukraine, Yelorussia, the Baltic Islands, and other areas. He declared bluntly, "We will destroy Russia so that she will never be able to rise again." This was 3 years ago. However, Hitler's crazy ideas were not fated to come true. The progress of the war scattered them to the winds. In actual fact, the direct opposite of the Hitler's ravings has taken place. Germany is utterly defeated. The German troops are surrendering. The Soviet Union is celebrating victory, although it does not intend either to dismember or to destroy Germany.
There's a bunch of mini
On
gnomes.
May the 9th, 1945, 2 U.S. Air Force
Oh, I'm in the wrong place.
took this footage on a road somewhere on Germany's
Proceed
border
to
with
extraction when ready.
Czechoslovakia. To escape the Red Army, Wehrmacht remnants were fleeing to that part of Germany occupied by the Americans.
Let's go.
Their Supreme Commander, Field Marshal Friedrich Schirmer, had long since left his troops in the lurch and absconded.
Delta 3, I got you covered. Come on.
Dressed in civilian clothes
Head to extract,
and
please.
several thousand marks from government coffers in his possession, he had flown in a Fieseler-Storch to Austria, where a short time later he was arrested by the Americans.
Calling down a sentry!
Members of the SS, who in the last weeks of the war had stood out through particularly fanatical resistance, had intermingled with ordinary German soldiers. Heinrich Himmler's henchmen
Delta 3, have a
obviously
hover
felt
pack.
safe in the midst of a stream of soldiers, nurses, and civilian employees flooding back to Germany.
Requesting advanced weaponry! Tech ready now!
These child soldiers have also surrendered. Some Germans were immaculately dressed when they surrendered to the Americans.
Exuding self-confidence, this lieutenant colonel with the Waffen-SS presented himself to the Americans as an adversary on an equal footing. But the GIs were not impressed. They knew all about the atrocities the SS had committed against captured US troops in the Ardennes. In the eyes of the two cameramen with Special Film Project 186, this officer was obviously a perfect example of the German master race.
On the other side of the border, in the small village of Tannenbergstal in the Vogtland region,
Captured US troops in the Ardennes. In the eyes of the two cameramen with Special Film Project 186, this officer was obviously a perfect example of the German master race.
On the other side of the border, in the small village of Tannenbergstal in the Vogtland region, convoys of German troops who had surrendered to the Americans were gridlocked.
Really makes me want to watch Fury again. I've been watched that movie so many times.
Just as the Supreme Command of the Wehrmacht had demanded, the soldiers laid down their arms in a sorted and orderly fashion. On May the 9th, 1945, around 10 million Germans laid down their arms. The relics of a war which their Supreme Commander, Adolf Hitler, had long planned and which, worldwide, had claimed around 60 million lives.
What the fuck? I can't throw anything. Something's wrong. Can't move.
Not a single high-ranking Wehrmacht officer felt the need to ignore Hitler's insane orders and prevent the slaughter of the last few weeks of the war. Even after the Führer had committed suicide, the fighting still continued. Thus, in the final week of the Second World War, 95,000
I can't move.
German soldiers met a senseless
Falcon 1, landing in progress. Falcon 1, preparing to depart. Shuttle launch in 20 seconds.
I can't move, but I can jump.
Extraction complete. Falcon 1 beginning ascent.
Oh. Nothing ambient, what the fuck? My ninjas.
Unrecognized. In Tyrol on May the 10th,
Oh, hello, Smeary Kitty. Of Doom. Of Friday. What's now? Of Boone. Oh shit, we lost James and Pookie. I might have to put some sauce on this pork.
Allied destroyer has left squadron.
Well, no, I'm totally fucked, but that's cool. I don't care what to do. Wouldn't want to be like you. I'm nothing against Jews. I've got Jewish cousins. My Jewish uncles. Tits, man. He's a chiropractor. Sick here my whole life. It's fucking awesome. Oh, yeah. Go back here, so there. Yeah, that one big. That one button makes so much difference. I do not own the rights to any of this music, but I do appreciate it and think that anyone who enjoys music should listen to this album. Abbey Road by Das Beatles. Es muy bueno. Es muy bien. Bien chauto. What the fuck? Too many hot damn apples. What a problem they have. And then Chinese apples. I want to show me the ambient temp. It should show me.
25. Erich Kästner described scenes in his diary that occurred in so many places.
The procession of limping soldiers is endless. They sell cigarettes to get their hands on a bit of money. There is a permanent demand for civilian clothes, but there is nothing to be had. Wardrobes are empty. A neighbor was given 450 cigarettes for an old pair of trousers. Enough to make that kind of deal. But the only trousers I've got are the ones I'm wearing. Some lance corporal offered the Steiner 3 pounds of smoked sausage, 20 cigarettes, and 100 marks in cash for a civilian suit. didn't reflect the tense market situation. The Steiners had lost 2 sons in the war. When advised and pointed out that their suits could be sold, the move turned ugly. But the old man swallowed his anger and slammed the door.
May the 14th, 1945, a week after Nazi Germany's unconditional surrender, a camera team with Special Film Project 186 was filming in Augsburg. By now, people
Is
here
that a hint
too
of nip right
had
there?
resigned themselves to the fact that the Nazi
I think it
Reich was
is.
gone and were coming to terms with their new
Well,
masters.
I want it to be.
The city had surrendered peacefully to the Americans on April the 28th, 1945. The people of Augsburg were relieved that the war had come to an end in their city without bloodshed. One inhabitant remembered later,
You had this double feeling of being defeated yet at the same time liberated. Defeat had to come.
She got such a cute little nose.
But only very
And them,
slowly did we
them titties, man.
realize
Man,
what
that cleavage is just,
liberated really meant.
makes me want to look at the rest of her.
Another inhabitant of Augsburg wrote,
You know, fuck it, I'm
"What a
drunk.
beautiful
What
day.
happens?
Nature is fresh and
We're already
young.
done.
The sun is shining and the sky is blue. You would think that a day like this would be full of jubilation and sound, that people would be laughing and weeping.
Hello, hello. I can't hear you. No. All right, say again. I can't hear any of y'all. Is there some kind of mute thing for people that just joined the servers? I gotta wait 10 minutes or something before you can hear me? Or I can hear you. I don't know. Hang on a sec. Shut the fuck up. Hello, hello. Okay. I hear something in the background, but I'm not sure what it is. It's super faint, and I've got everything turned all the way up. It sounds like a... Something about the Guardian of the Cosmos? I don't... Is somebody playing something... Something like an Edgar Rice Burroughs storybook? Sound like something I would be playing, but I don't think I am. Maybe I should just restart the whole damn thing. Why can't I hear you people? And by you people, I mean you people. Mute channel? No, not muted. Users aren't muted, channels not muted. I don't know what the fuck's going on now. It doesn't make any sense. What? Okay, let me get in game with you. See if you can hear me in game. See if I can hear you if we're in game. I should say, since you can hear me and I can't hear you. Let's see. I am streaming, so I can't see the names really, but I can turn that off if you didn't like it. Nobody watches my shit anyway. I'm boring as fuck. I can't join Ruiz because he's in a 3-4 game, but it's actually 4-4. So, Lisa's all alone. I mean, not in the game. Try turning off stream for a minute. Okay. Okay. Roger that.